All right, all right. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone back to not quite a happy hour show, although it is occurring during happy hour time, but it's not Friday at 5. It's Tuesday, 5 Eastern here. And I see our guest is prepared. So,
A bit later here.
oh, yeah. It is a little bit later over there. So I'd like to, first of all, everybody knows Motley in the community, right below me there. But I'd like to welcome in our special guest, Billy Bambrough. Did I get that somewhat close?
Very, very close.
Okay, good. Thank you. And yeah, so I think most of the Hexagon community is aware of the article that came out late last week in Forbes Online. And we can go through that in a bit. And of course, as with any crypto community, it causes quite a stir. And you were joking, I guess, in DM about how polarizing some communities can be, citing perhaps Link Marines and XRP armies and things like that. So you have experience dealing with this stuff, right?
Yeah. All the joys of it. And yeah, it was summer of 2020 when I think the Link Marines were especially fearsome. But it was a few years before that, 2018, I suppose, where XRP Army was very annoyed every time that I would mention the word Ripple in relation to XRP. They'd get very angry with me.
Yeah. I mean, it comes with the territory, being, a writer, on crypto. So how, before we get in, I guess, to the piece, can you just give us, I guess, a background on how you ended up writing, about crypto and for a website / publication such as Forbes?
Yeah, it's a super interesting story. My first journalism job out of university was writing for these trade magazines here in London on the banking industry. Very dry kind of stuff, like monthly magazines and digging into financial reports, and generally not like breaking lots of news, but just feature articles, interviews with bankers and things like that. My editor at the time was a very old-fashioned guy, and he was very skeptical of everything, really, which I suppose is a good thing, but Bitcoin especially. And as the youngest person on the team, somehow it just fell to me to look into what Bitcoin was. And he said, Billy, go and find out what Bitcoin is and report back and tell us if it's anything important. And I did, and I was kind of awed by it. And I thought, wow, this seems like a really big deal, like digital scarcity for the first time ever, and the potential of blockchain and all this kind of stuff. So I told him all this, and he was not convinced, and so he didn't let me do much on it. But I still followed it and was interested in it. After that, I had just kind of some other journalism jobs, startup radio station, a free newspaper here in London called City AM. And shortly after that, I ended up writing for Forbes on Bitcoin and crypto in like early 2018, I think I started. So after the 2017 bull run, so kind of when everything had calmed down a bit, but there was still just a lot of hype and excitement and things, and it, coming in at that kind of stage, I think was probably quite a good thing for someone that was familiar with it all, but still a little bit new to it, because when you come into an ecosystem or a community or whatever on the upswing, it's really easy to get carried away, and everyone's just super positive and bullish all the time and only wants to talk about the price. But I felt it was a better time to come in 2018 because a build phase or bear market, whatever you want to call it, where people are a little bit less focused on the price. So that was an interesting couple of years of really trying to find out interesting stories about the crypto industry, market, people, whatever, until late 2020 when it all took off again. And was all just about the price until now when it's back to that building phase.
Yeah, got it. I mean, you pretty much have seen like the ups and downs of a full cycle at this point. So no doubts about that. So yeah, regarding your latest piece, which again, we're going to get into here shortly. How did the idea of the article come about? I'm guessing you've been familiar with HEX for a long time, as it's been out for, I guess, more than 1,000 days. And but how did this article come about, and the topic of self-destructing in quotes and impacting the likes of Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Well, I think just because, it's partly because I wrote a very similar thing in, I suppose, April about Celsius, just weeks before Celsius imploded. And specifically with Celsius, I was looking at the Cell token and its huge price declines, and thinking, I messaged, completely forgotten his name, the
Mashinsky?
Alex Mashinsky.
Mashinsky, yes, exactly. Messaged Alex asking how low would Cell have to go before it caused a problem for you guys, or what other pressures are you facing internally? And he just ignored me, didn't want to talk about it. But it certainly seems to be getting to a stage kind of similar to the Terra and Luna situation a little bit earlier, that it was becoming unsustainable for them. And I suppose it was a similar kind of idea with HEX, that it was down 90% from its all-time highs. I think it's still about, it might have gone up a little bit from then, but about 90% down. And it was specifically with the HEX situation was Richard Hart's promises of PulseChain and the DEX as well, not materializing, and suggestions, well, as far as I can tell.
What were those promises? Because he's very careful with his language. So what?
Sure. But it's, I mean, I think he did promise once that it would launch in a few months, and then he said after that, after missing that deadline, he said, "I'm never making another prediction like that again," which is fair enough.
He predicted. I mean, he went off what the developers were telling him, but yeah, I've never seen or heard Richard promise anything.
Not a promise, but just gave a rough timeline. Didn't come to fruition.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And this is something that I'd be really interested to hear from you guys about, what your expectations are around it, because the documentation that I can find seems to suggest that PulseChain would create a staking blockchain before Ethereum got there. Ethereum's now got there, and I don't really see what PulseChain will add. Well, it might add something, but there's only ever sort of vague suggestions of what that could be. And so that certainly seems to be, there were a couple of interviews that Richard did in the last couple of months where he kind of seems to suggest that it's just going to be a direct copy of Ethereum 2.0. And there didn't seem to be much else to it. And I suppose the question is just when does the confidence evaporate for the community? And obviously that hasn't happened yet, but will it happen in a year or in 2 years? Or if PulseChain launches and it is just Ethereum, like a carbon copy of Ethereum, would that cause the industry or the community to start rushing for the exit? So it was just that kind of question, really. And like, from a journalistic perspective, the piece is kind of framed around the HEX price going lower over the last year. But it's also kind of hinged on this idea that PulseChain is not going to live up to whatever expectations there are for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak on the community. I guess I'll just take that one really quick, and Motley can chat a little bit about PulseChain. But one of the quotes in your article, and it was like several HEX holders have reached out to inform, I guess Mike Alfred is who you were.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike about it, which, I know he has a history of criticizing HEX.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like they've reached out to him and informed him that the HEX community is self-destructing right now, and I find that nowhere near the truth, probably the farthest thing from, just because of how the community started, and I've seen it since the beginning. And also what is on its side is the long-term mentality of locking up your coins for, I think average durations, maybe close to 7 years, 7 to 8 years now, possibly up to 15 if you want, 15.2. So that long-term mindset is already in the minds of a lot of these people, a lot of people who made the sacrifice for a PulseChain or a PulseX. So I think many of their mentalities are strong, and they're not too worried. Of course, you're going to have a random, few people be frustrated who want to cash out, whatever the reason, and you can get a hold of those on Twitter, and then form opinions upon that, but I think the overall community is pretty much stronger than ever. Motley, we wanted to go on
All right.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a lot. All right, Billy. So got it all broken down. I have some questions from your article. I just wanted to go from top to bottom. First thing I was curious about. So you, according to your bio, you said you started looking in and following Bitcoin since 2012, correct?
Yeah, about then. I think so. Yeah.
When did you actually invest in Bitcoin or whatever
No.
was your first crypto? You never did?
Oh, I mean, like I have bought Bitcoin before, spent it. I currently hold 0 of any cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a common problem with it, right? Because a lot of people sell too early. If you bought in 2012, you would have done great if you held till the top of this market, right? Like it would have been, I think I charted it out, and you would have been up 1.7 million% is what you would have been up if you
specifically though. Whenever I bought Bitcoin, it was only to spend. I never bought to invest.
Right. So what has stopped you from investing in crypto if you followed it since 2012? Because you've seen the gains, right? You've seen what it could do several cycles now. What stopped you from actually?
I didn't have any money. I was a very indebted university graduate.
even like $1 or $2. Like, I mean, so let's take HEX example so in your article, you start off with talk about the controversial cryptocurrency, market capitalization of 5 billion, faces its claims, about to implode, seeing its price crash 9%. So HEX did a 10,000x from all-time lows to all-time highs, right? So even a poor grad student, every dollar you put in from all-time lows to all-time high is $10,000, right? I think we can agree any sort of money, even a poor grad student, could be life-changing at those levels. Bitcoin's experienced.
And that's very that's the wisdom of hindsight. I mean, if I'd bought a lottery ticket and put the right numbers on, then I would have also made a lot of money. Or if I'd picked a different cryptocurrency to invest in, I would have lost a lot of money, many of which had made very similar claims to HEX or any other one. Well,
to a degree, because if you've been following the space since 2012, like at this point, we have enough data. We've had over a decade of data where you've seen the cyclical nature of like what cryptocurrencies has done. So yes, there is that one caveat of picking the right one. And I'd argue finding the one that returns the next cycle is going to give you the most outsized returns. It's very hard to do. Most are going to fail. I agree. But like even Bitcoin and Ethereum, if you just held those over time, Bitcoin, you would have seen a 6.9 million X. Ethereum, you would have seen the 13,000 X from all-time lows, all-time highs. And there's these new coins that come in. And it's a cool thing about HEX. It's essentially Bitcoin has pivoted to this narrative of a store value, where originally it was peer-to-peer cash. Like you said, you bought it, you spent it. You kind of actually used it for what it was, its intended purpose in the beginning. But turns out peer-to-peer cash isn't a very good price fundamental, right? It found a new narrative, store value. Hey, it's better not to spend these coins because it goes up in X's over the years. So people just tended to go into more of a store value. HEX does the very same thing, which is cool because that staking feature actually enables you to realize those gains where most of us would have sold out. Most of us can't buy something at a penny and go to $1 or 100X. Some can't go to $10, $100. $60,000. Most people that had that Bitcoin in the beginning, almost none of them made it. They had to have lost that Bitcoin. And HEX actually gives you the ability to reach those kinds of gains. That's why so many people in our community are still here, because of that locking mechanism, and actually realize more gains than most Bitcoiners because that locking feature, that staking feature, kept us essentially honest to what we said we were going to do at the time. Now, so the 5 billion, I was curious, where did you get your information on the 5 billion market cap of HEX?
Coinbase, I believe.
Coinbase? Okay.
Or Coin Market Cap, maybe.
Maybe Coinbase.
So if you want to actually find do you know how they derive to what actual market cap is? Do you know how they come up with that?
Supply times price times circulating supply, I assume.
Right. Supply, some will argue circulating supply, but yes. So if you go to Etherscan and you actually put in the HEX contract, the market cap is actually 24 billion as of today, they have a total supply of about 581 billion. And it's funny, I kind of wanted to bring something to your attention as well, just to kind of show some of the gatekeeping that HEX has already faced, because I do believe it really does upset the status quo that we're in right now. Let me see if I can share this screen with Cabana. Let's see, Chrome tab. Let's go to my favorite site, CoinMarketCap.
Oh boy.
Yeah, let me know when you can see that, Cabana. All right, cool. So Billy, you can see here. Let's see. Let me go back to it on my page. I'm on. There we go. You can see here number 200, right? Page 2. The market cap is sitting at 95 million, give or take, right here. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So something that's funny about like CoinMarketCap and a lot of these actually third-party market cap sites is they manually gatekeep HEX. If you see right here on the third page, 201, where we've actually been permanently locked on, it says our market cap is 7.2 billion. And clearly that's much higher than rank number 200, but we've been manually gatekept here since borderline our existence. And this just kind of shows you some of the corruption, some of the stuff our community has kind of had to face in the past is because you have third parties like these centralized exchanges like Binance that have bought these coin market cap sites that people use to go seek out their information. The beautiful thing about HEX is because it's a decentralized product, it doesn't require you to go on a centralized exchange to trade it, get chewed up by fees. That's how they end up making their money. So something that is what I believe truly revolutionary is something as a Bitcoin or Ethereum has been manually gatekept and locked on page 3, 201 since its conception on Binance, along with some other projects here as well. It's not just HEX. So I was just curious where you actually got those numbers with your 5 billion market cap on HEX.
Yeah, I mean, it is just trusting those. I think it was Coinbase that I got it from, but it might well have been CoinMarketCap. And I do understand your guys' frustration with it. And you know, to be honest, I should have put it more clearly in the piece that this was based on CoinMarketCap data, but it's kind of
like that'd be a great idea for an article. Just saying, gatekeeping of certain cryptos, because I know CoinMarketCap is actually being sued for such things. So
what was your argument for why Coinbase would be gatekeeping it as well?
Same thing. They're third party. They're a fiat on-off ramp. HEX, you don't need them. The yield is trustless, right? So all this, and this is actually a very big difference. I wanted to bring it up, but I want to let you finish. When you were speaking in the beginning with Celsius, is they're actually two different products. They both claim to earn you yield on your crypto, but at the core, they're very different. Celsius, you have to, a common saying in crypto is not to give up, not your keys, not your coins. So you give your crypto up to someone else that says, hey, I'm going to do this cool DeFi stuff and earn you yield and I'll pay you yield. You run the risk of them getting hacked, of them going bankrupt because they're doing the same degen stuff everyone else is doing. You run into that worry of collapse. Same thing with Coinbase. You're giving them your money. You're hoping they give you the coins back. You're hoping you get them the yield back. And this is the problem that we run into when you said, oh, I trusted the site for a market cap, or I trusted Celsius with my coins for yield. And that's why the HEX community pushes back so hard, especially when we get articles like this, is because it truly is one of the first trustless DeFi products that we've had in crypto, which is very revolutionary because it eliminates middlemen. It eliminates what essentially we got out of traditional finance for. We were tired of middlemen fees, tired of banks telling you how much money you can send, when you can send it, even though it's your money, it's in your account. And that's what crypto was designed to remove with those middlemen. We've kind of lost our way. So we push back so hard when we actually have one of the true trustless DeFi products that enables you to earn trustless yield without a third party. There's very few products that are even similar to it. I'd argue Uniswap is about the only one, which is an on-market exchange. Again, a product that starts removing these centralized exchanges, these middlemen, these Coinbases, these Binances. So they have incentive not to publicize them correctly, to spread disinformation out there. And so if you're not careful and you don't know where to look, you could end up citing stuff that's not true, not correct, and then gives people a false image of what something actually is.
Sure. So would you also expect Coinbase to be manipulating the Uniswap data?
No, I won't think so.
Why would they treat HEX differently? Because to be honest, I haven't asked them this, but I would expect them to say that they don't.
We'd have to see, but I mean, all the Uniswap data is on chain. So like all the HEX, all the trading volume, all that stuff, it's all transparent, right? Where the moment anything goes to a centralized exchange or Coinbase or Binance or anything like that, you have no idea what they're doing. You don't know if they're wash trading. You don't know with the true volume, you don't know any of that. That's why these decentralized exchanges are that revolutionary. Whether or not Coinbase or Binance it messes with those numbers, I'm not familiar, but I'm sure you probably want to get an honest answer either way. Okay.
I mean, specifically with Coinbase, they list a lot of tokens. They don't list a lot of other tokens. But it's in their interest for people to be trading tokens on their platform, like in whatever way. So I don't know why they would be biased against HEX.
So their old business model back in the day, they were very selective on what they list. They only listed Bitcoin. Then they realized they were losing out a ton of money because they weren't keeping up with all these other exchanges like Binance and bringing on all these new coins. And now it used to be you probably remember that used to be the big thing, like, oh, it's about to get listed on Coinbase, I better go buy it. And then you would get front run by even like their employees. We find out years later that some of their employees were front running those listings, telling their friends. Obviously, that's a huge no-no. When it comes to HEX, again, you don't need them for yield. People send their coins for them to earn yield. I know you can earn yield on their stables. They earn on transactions. HEX, you do not have to rely on a third party. We'll talk into it because it comes up on a couple points you made in the article, but it's just not these third parties, these middlemen that crypto was designed to get rid of. They don't benefit from you just interacting with code. They don't, because they're removed from the equation. So they're not incentivized to promote a project that essentially takes away their bread and butter when it comes to being a business. So they look out for their best interests.
I do I do agree with you somewhat, but I think they would say that they would be of the opinion that a rising tide would lift all boats, and so any kind of trading is just good, like just more trading of everything all the time. Like they don't want to stifle.
I mean, yes, but the HEX is literally a coin that's not meant to be traded. It's meant to be staked, and you earn your yield. You earn more of the tokens without trading. It removes their business model, so they're going to push back, or they might gatekeep it. We don't have to necessarily agree to disagree on that one, so we can just move on from that. Let's see. Those who don't have version of cryptocurrency. Let's see. So you made a comment on here about HEX's price appreciation over 2 years, attracting a lot of criticism due to the rewarding of those who keep their tokens locked up and penalizing those that don't. I was wondering if you were able to talk more clearly on that. Because if you hold your coins liquid, you don't get penalized. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's up to you to choose if you want to stake or not. And then if you stake, you actually receive the token's inflation as a reward. So you don't have to stake. You can hold liquid. You could have bought in at the all-time lows, sold at the all-time highs or anytime you wanted to. Or if you did like what we do in the community, which is a staking ladder, you can do 1 day out to 15 years. It's up to you. But you don't get penalized if you don't choose to stake. What does happen, though, the incentivization of staking is the coin does inflate at 3.69% a year. And so if you actually want to earn that inflation or even more than the current inflation for that year, you have to stake out long past the average staking length. So right now, currently in HEX, the staking average length is 6.7 years. And at current evaluation, it's $3 billion. And I can't think of any other financial instrument that exists today that shows that vote of confidence, especially in crypto, which we know how much these markets change. To lock something up for 6 years where there is no middleman, it's just code. You won't get it out. You will receive penalties if you don't see the stake to fruition like you said you would. It's just a contract between you and code. No middleman, no one in between. But it truly is.
I suppose that would be where I've got it from. That if you don't see it out to full term, this is. I think it's important to bear in mind that Forbes is not a cryptocurrency focused publication. It does target mass market readers who aren't potentially very familiar with this stuff. So it's meant to it doesn't go into a huge amount of detail about any cryptocurrency. I don't want, when people are reading it, I want a lay person to be able to understand it. So
I guess the issue I find with that is like you still have to be, because like more or less this is an article that paints HEX and not so good light, right? Like this isn't a great piece. It's borderline. I don't want to say hit piece, but like it's not flattering for the cryptocurrency, right? So like if there's stuff in the article that's not correct, yes, I understand you have to explain it in layman terms, but I would also want, if you're going to come at it hard, come at it correctly as well. So that's why I was just,
yeah, and I do see what you're saying, but just from my perspective, the situation with HEX at the moment is not good. Like 90% down from its all-time highs. There were a lot of people who bought then and who are currently seeing losses of 90%.
That's a lot of crypto too, right?
Yeah,
let me just say that, you know, my job as a journalist is just to report recent facts, like just to say what has happened recently. If it had gone up by 90% in the last, I don't know, short amount of time, then that's the story that I would write. But you have to respond as a journalist to the changing situation and write about that.
But
and if that's 90% dip, then I would definitely write a story about HEX.
But you're targeting HEX. How does that differ? How's that differ than any other crypto and the current macro event that we're in?
I write about a lot of different cryptocurrencies and their relative fortunes up and down.
And so, like, you can say it's 90% down. And so that was in your article as well, 90% down. Meanwhile, Ethereum and Bitcoin around 70% down. But see, you're measuring from the top down, whereas Bitcoin or HEX from its all-time lows to all-time highs is up still 1,000x over what it started. So like we're still up from 1,000x less than 3 years ago. That's several hundred X's over what Bitcoin would have been if you invested back then. And that's almost over 100x of what you'd be up if you invested in Ethereum. So it's a different way of framing that doesn't necessarily give you the best overall picture. Because today, as we stand, if you had to choose an investment vessel during the time of HEX's creation, you would have been, like I said, hundreds of X up over Bitcoin and over 100x over Ethereum as of today. Or you would still be 1,000x up from a 90% move down. So you can say it like that, the way you said in the article, but it's not really a genuine portrayal of what HEX has done.
Yeah, and I see what you mean, that it's not a completely holistic version of it. But if I told you about some other thing that wasn't HEX that is down 90% from its all-time highs and tried to suggest that this was something that perhaps you should invest in, I think you would have little time for that, because you'd say, well, it's down 90% from its all-time highs, so I don't want to invest in it. And
that's the problem with all this stuff, is that is the time to invest. If you choose the right investment vessel, and like I said earlier, if it's something that comes back every cycle and you find the right product with the right market fit, like that is the time you want to buy. You don't want to buy when it's frothy. You don't want to buy into the green candles where we're up 10,000x. Those people did get wrecked. That very small window of when we're pumping up to a 10,000x, those people that bought that are down. Now, if you dollar cost average and you buy at that 90% lower cost basis, you've now reduced your dollar cost average down to probably almost single digits. If you essentially invested the same amount that you did at the top and the bottom, you could be well back into a healthy factor. So this is actually a time, as long as it is the right product, it does have the right market fit, this would be the time to buy it. So that's why I'm just challenging you to maybe better frame it in the future, because measuring from the top down is a lazy way to do it. You can't do it better.
I think it is the best of a lot of bad ways to do it, because I think doing it from a different way kind of suggests that I either am endorsing something about what's going to happen in the future, which I cannot predict, or
display both. Display both, and then let the people decide. You don't have to be. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do one or the other to favor it, but sure. It is reality.
I think I did say that it has had outsized growth or something over the past few years. So I did kind of try to suggest that it has had risen very quickly for a long time. But I think the problem with trying to predict future performance from previous performance is that the world that previous performance happened in doesn't exist anymore. So realistically, the US, or perhaps even a whole group of governments and regulators and things, could all organize together, and they could outlaw all of this kind of stuff. They could outlaw I'm not saying they should, absolutely not, but it realistically could happen. And it could mean that anyone that's using this kind of software either faces fines or even more serious kind of penalties. And that could mean that the price does not sustain any kind of upward momentum ever again. And and that's just an example of something that could happen in the future.
Yeah, that's like an apocalyptic scenario that would apply to all cryptos, right? So like,
exactly.
That wouldn't just be specific to HEX.
Sure.
And then I would just counter that too, is out of all the cryptocurrencies that do exist today, a truly decentralized product that earns you yield without middlemen, without any need of an interface of a third party, of a Coinbase, of a Binance, someone with admin keys that can actually be come after by like the government or any sort of government officials. Something like that is much more susceptible to true DeFi products like a Uniswap, like a HEX, even like Bitcoin, because the code runs regardless.
Sure, but the product is still based on more people flowing into it, more people putting more money.
It'll just be bad for crypto overall, but
it already requires quite a savvy cohort of people that know what they're doing with a computer to, even like the simplest of crypto things like using MetaMask. Someone's elderly relative is unlikely to be able to just be comfortable doing that. And if it's made illegal or just heavily clamped down on, the size of potential users could just shrink to a level that makes it unsustainable.
If you ran into a tyrannical government that's trying to sanction what you can spend your money on, crypto, stocks, real estate, whatever, hold on, real quick, whatever asset class they want to clamp down, the one thing that actually has essentially centralization, or not centralization, what's the word I'm looking for?
A central authority.
Yeah, something to get away from a central authority. It is the cryptocurrency asset class. Like, I personally would remove as much money from those banking systems as possible, because they're trying to tell you what you can and can't do with your money. Now they could cinch down on off ramps. Yeah, sure, there's all possibilities, but crypto is something where you can carry your net worth anywhere in the world. It's all zeros and ones. You have complete custody over it. No one can confiscate that from you unless they get your seed words, or they throw you in jail and torture you. Like, you are your own financial sovereignty over it. So like, if it gets to the point where the government's at that, like, man, we have bigger issues on our plate than just what cryptocurrency we're investing in.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I think that the idea of what we consider illegal or illicit or even just frowned upon as a society can change relatively quickly, and things that perhaps previously were permitted suddenly aren't. And I don't think people really often put up all that much of a fight, and it just kind of becomes the way of it. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but just that seems to be often what happens. And
it's usually the problem when people don't push back, unfortunately.
Sure. It does, what you're saying reminds me of that XKCD comic where they're annoyed that someone's encrypted their laptop with some unbreakable algorithm. They just go, okay, just hit him with this hammer until he tells us the password.
Don't keep them in your head. Yeah,
self-sovereign and be able to do that. But it makes you also very open to a avenue of attack that just comes from a different place, and in a way that your specific defense doesn't protect you from. So yeah, I mean, I'm a natural libertarian, and I don't like the way that governments conduct themselves in most cases, but you still just have to live in the real world where this is how they conduct themselves. And if we just look at the past, even relatively recent history, it's not outside of the realms of possibility. And sorry, to pull it back to the HEX thing, I do think it would potentially stifle flows into HEX to make it unsustainable.
All crypto, but then at the same time, like, you probably do have people that see that kind of stuff and see it as a big red flag, and maybe they do want to move money out of their banks, go to crypto. Money goes where it's treated best, right? And like me personally, I'm now retired in Puerto Rico. I moved to Puerto Rico because it treated my money better than the States did. It's the only place as a U.S. resident, that I can actually go and protect myself from capital gains tax. As a U.S. citizen, unless I denounce my citizenship, I will always have to pay capital gains tax no matter where I live. If I live in another country, the UK, Japan, you name it, I'm going to always, U.S. is always going to get their due. So Puerto Rico was the only place under the Act 60 that I can actually protect myself from that. So that's the option I went, right? So like the US lost me, lost my financial energy, lost what I'm going to do in the future. They lost that to Puerto Rico. Now my focus and my businesses are going to be focused in Puerto Rico and not the US. It's the same thing. If the US wants to crack down on it, China wants to crack down on it. We've seen it with the miners in China. They move. US has now become one of the largest miners of Bitcoin. Money is going to go where it's treated best. And if whatever country wants to crack down and go tyrannical on crypto in the future, the people with the wealth and the know-how are going to move to where they're treated best. And if I guarantee you, we'll see that play out. So I see it more as them willing to come to the table to play ball. Otherwise, they're going to lose out on a lot.
Sure.
They might not be that powerhouse in the future.
Broadly, I do agree with you, but I will write about it once it's happened, not before it happens.
Fair enough. So we can kind of pivot a little bit to PulseChain and clear up some stuff that I read in your article about PulseChain. So at one point you put in here, announced last year, PulseChain has been promoted as a fork of Ethereum that would transition to proof of stake consensus mechanism before Ethereum itself. People that wanted to receive PulseChain's Pulse tokens and a so-called airdrop were asked to sacrifice their Ethereum, HEX, or cryptocurrencies. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit. We are actually, what we're doing is copying the system state of Ethereum. So essentially all the tokens that are built upon Ethereum would be copied over into PulseChain. So it wouldn't be like a ghost chain. Now, what we actually were forking is an EVM of just a Binance chain. So we were forking Binance chain, which was already a previous fork of Ethereum. The consensus mechanism and everything's a little bit different. It was never going to be a fork of Ethereum, just the system state of Ethereum. Now, what has transpired over recently, which was kind of what this article stemmed from, and Mike Alfred, which we'll get to here shortly, but is essentially now that Ethereum 2.0 did come out, we did not beat Ethereum 2.0 to market, which was the intention in the beginning, but software is hard. I'm not personally in that field, but I do have some people that I respect highly that are high-level devs that say the same thing. Nothing ever comes out when you want it to. It's always delays. I've actually worked on a few things as well, and I understand the frustration with devs. Like it never comes on time. It just doesn't. So Ethereum 2.0 did beat us to market. According to Richard, essentially Binance Smart Chain has some critical flaws that they haven't released yet and would be catastrophic for the chain. So instead of continuing on, they're probably working on trying to fix that this whole time. And
has Richard shared any evidence of that with you, or you just is that just on his web?
This was released in Ivan's last stream. So the last interview he did, this was actually the first time a lot of us in the community heard it. That's kind of why there was a fluster and a lot of this stuff came up. So he announced this on Ivan's stream. I think he mentioned the flaws in Binance Smart Chain earlier, but he really kind of honed in on it on this stream. But critical flaws in Binance. Ethereum 2.0, yes, they did beat us to market. Richard was trying to beat Ethereum to market, the proof of stake. He didn't. He lost. And so instead of moving forward with a chain that has critical flaws, his philosophy is always he prefers battle-tested, proven software. And if there's no better software proven chain today than Ethereum. So he made the pivot. He's like, you know what? We're no longer going to fork Binance Smart Chain. We're going to fork Ethereum 2.0. We don't know exactly what details he talked about. So PulseChain will still be 100% deflationary, which Ethereum is not. Only when the fees go up or the activity goes up does it potentially become disinflationary. But it'll be 100% deflationary for PulseChain. There'll be a 25% additional fee burnage. It may or may not be faster. He said he doesn't really care. If they can massage it, they will. You'll still get that system state copy of Ethereum. So all your Ethereum tokens ERC20 tokens will now be copied over as PRC20 tokens. So you will have those tokens. And then, so that was a pivot. A lot of people were kind of upset. It's just, you wait a long time. People have expectations. It didn't come to fruition. He pivoted because there's critical flaws that can bring down the entire Binance Smart Chain. And now we're forking Ethereum 2.0. We'll have the proof of stake. We'll have their consensus mechanism. And so it will come out in the future. Again, he's never made any promises of dates. There was that one time, like you did mention, it was March or mid-May. I can't remember which one.
Mid-May.
mid-May, where he was saying, hey, it looks like we might be launching mid-May. Didn't promise it. But then came up and just like, sorry guys, there was bugs. We couldn't launch. And everyone threw a fit. He's like, cool, I'm not going to give you any more even rough estimates because I was wrong. My devs were wrong. Moving on. So that was kind of the thing right there.
If I'd be interested in your guys' perspective. If say we get to this time next year and PulseChain still hasn't launched, would you still just be happy to trust Richard's word on that?
Yeah.
5 years?
Because 5 years, no. 5
At
years.
that point, you're already in or past the next cycle. So
So
yeah.
I know we're talking very much hypotheticals here, but if we're just extrapolating out from what has already happened, if it gets to a stage where you feel it is no longer worth your patience to wait for it, what would you think the situation has been to get to that stage?
Well, there's a couple things, right? So like, there's all the caveats of how the sacrifice phase was brought about because it is unique. It was never done before. You had these ICOs, which are all deemed security. Bitcoin, as of today, is the only one that's not deemed security. Even Ethereum was deemed security, but now they got a slap on the wrist and moved on. The sacrifice phase and the wording and all that was essentially put together to avoid the failing the Howey test and being deemed a security. So like, honestly, even though we sacrifice a shit ton of money, me as well personally, like you can't have any expectations of work of the others, what have you. But obviously people are going to want their chain. And at the end of the day, like I will wait as long as it needs to take for security issues. If we ended up launching that fork of the Binance chain with those critical flaws, like Richard supposedly, and this is all hearsay coming from Richard, but it's what we have to take him at, is if they launch, that chain is susceptible to whatever those bugs are if they weren't able to fix them. So he had to pivot. Ethereum has so far withstood this test of time. And his words, a couple other devs' words, it should actually take less time now forking Ethereum proof of stake than forking what Binance Smart Chain, which we were doing initially. So I would like to see it come out within the next year. I think we will get it probably early Q1 if I had to guess, but my guess is worth shit. Everyone else's guess is worth shit. I think there's no way it doesn't come out. Like it's a weird thing to think, but like go ahead, Cabana. You could probably talk on this.
Oh, I was just going to mention, like, where else do you? I think he's one of the most transparent, I guess, founders in crypto. So if there's a live stream, 2 times a month. I mean, we used to get them maybe once a week or something like that. But he does supply updates, like the Ivan on Tech kind of thing, and that's what it is. We get to hear the pivot in a sense live from BSC to ETH2 going live, and then that's the way we're going. So now if it was just like, okay, well, if we pivoted from ETH2 to like Cardano or something, then I'd probably throw my hands in the air and walk away. But I can't see that happening. Like Motley was saying, I do think my guess following this, as long as I'd say we're months away.
And as far as I'm aware, Richard's been quite cagey about who's actually working on this. Like he mentions mysterious top developers, but without naming any names. I get that there's like a secrecy within quality staff, and you don't want your talent to be poached by another project. But it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence when someone will kind of just vaguely gesture towards a group of people without actually naming any of them. And
I can understand that a bit from the outside looking in, because I guess we're entrenched in this the Hexagon community, who is a major sacrificer for PulseChain. So we're like, I guess we were talking at the beginning of the show, it's like there's an automatic mindset of this delayed gratification, and HEX has proven itself, I think, more than it needs to by this point. But go ahead.
It's just we can go off past history, and we have HEX, which is immutable code. It had to launch 100% correct, no
and that
bugs,
was delayed.
No issues for 3 years. It's been running and it's got $3 billion locked up for 6.7 years. There's a lot of incentive for people.
Developers working on it, though.
What's that?
We did know the developers working on it at the time.
Right, but he says his main dev, his best dev, he says he still has that from that HEX project to PulseChain as well. So there is still proof from prior work, and this is what essentially gave Richard the credibility for people to give him over $1 billion, almost $2 billion for sacrificing for a decentralized exchange and a new layer one, because he proved in the past that he could do it, that he had built an amazing product that did a 10,000x in 2 years, immutable code, hasn't failed, no issues whatsoever. So that gave him the trust of people to sacrifice almost $2 billion to him. So at the end of the day, I think based off what's already existed, what he's proven so far, it's just a matter of time. It's not if we get PulseChain like Mike Alfred was alluding to. It's just like, when do we get PulseChain? And for me, I personally find waiting because I want it to be done right. I waited 2 years for HEX, and it paid me a 10,000x. I'm very happy with that. I'm fine with waiting again for PulseChain if it takes 2 years. So be it. We're at our 1 year mark. I hope it comes out sooner the better. But who knows? I'm not the developer. I'm not on Richard's team. Speculating on that kind of stuff is a waste of energy anyways. But again, I don't think it's a matter of if, but when. So that's why I push back when you have like trolls like Mike Alfred. They're like, oh, it's never going to launch. Or HEX, he was actually asked on Crypto Man Rand's YouTube show, like Richard, him, and a buddy of his were on. Crypto Man Rand asked him, like, when do you think, you think HEX is a scam? When do you think it's going to fail? And he's like, oh, it needs like another 5 years of slow bleed. It's like, okay, so it's existed for 3 years, had a 10,000x, outcompeting Bitcoin, Ethereum. It's going on to its second cycle, and you say it needs another 5 years. You think it needs almost a decade more to fail? I've never seen a Ponzi that requires a decade to fail in the crypto space. It just doesn't make any sense. Instead, you have something that has $3 billion locked up for 6.7 years that's never existed before. Like, I find that bullish. I don't find that a net negative for the system crashing and collapsing. It's not a Luna stable coin where it's designed to hyperinflate as people make a run on the bank. It's not a Celsius where you give up your keys, not your crypto. It's none of these things. It's true decentralized finance. And all the signs point to be revolutionary and probably one of the biggest impactful cryptocurrencies we'll see next cycle. So all the people talking shit, I'm going to love it when we go back into our next bull cycle like we've done many years now. We go from bear to bull, and you'll see HEX probably perform better than any other cryptocurrency. You'll probably see PulseChain, PulseX. And so all the haters are going to look really freaking stupid when there's another hundreds, thousands of X on the table that they left there, and their audience missed out on it, not for the first time, but the second time now. So this is why I have issues with these people like Mike Alfred that like to be Twitter trolls, but then they delete even that thread that you referenced. He deleted it. He didn't stand behind the statements he made. He deleted it. He got his mom to buy the Bitcoin top at 60K. He was proud of it. He deleted that tweet. The guy's Bitcoin mining company is down 80%. Bitcoin's only down 70%, right? That's a good one to pull off. Good job, Mike Alfred. Maybe instead of trying to get clout and trolling on Twitter and deleting his tweets, maybe he should focus on his own business that's failing horribly and not worry about the decentralized product that's been running flawlessly for the past 3 years. That was the biggest issue that I really had with the whole article. And maybe
when HEX goes back up again and hits a new all-time high, I'll write it and I'll quote you in it and I'll say you called it way back when.
Appreciate that.
Boom. Anything else, Motley, before we wrap up? Because we've gone over the time that Billy and I were chatting about, but yeah, good.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you, Billy. Had a little bit more, but nothing really needs to be harped on. I do appreciate you coming on. 99% of people wouldn't actually come on and do this, so respect for that. In the future, I would just say, if you are going to do an article that paints something in a negative light, really maybe spend the extra time to review it from all sides. Don't just follow what a troll hater on Twitter says. Maybe see the other side of the community that actually is invested in the product and get both sides of the token and get a more weighted response. Maybe something like that in the future would be good. But yeah, I enjoyed our conversation. I'm glad you came on. Most want to do this. Respect.
Yeah, very cool. Like I said in the green room, and Motley just said it right there, how many people talk or write or tweet something and then ghost. So props to Billy for coming on, having a great discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, that'll about wrap it up. Look at this, like less than an hour show. This never happened. So thank you everybody for watching. Billy, I guess they can find your writings because I think you just published an article yesterday or the day before, another one in Forbes Online, correct? So
yeah.
Yep.
pretty regularly.
And the link to the article that we were talking about is in the description. So it's Billy's article on HEX there. Motley Investor, while we sign off, where can people find you?
Same place as always.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. And we will be back for another happy hour this Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks again, Billy, for hopping on with us. Very cool of you to do that. And it was a great discussion. So thanks again. We'll see you guys in a few days. Cheers.